remember I said these are going to be old presentations that I did that I have updated with current data. Actually, I see Clark is out here tonight. Clark, you actually were present at this one when I gave it in 2004 at the first RPM in the Twin City area here in Minneapolis,
Oh,
St. Paul.
that place
Anyway,
with the nice chairs.
yes, that would cost
Yeah.
us $1,000 up front, and so it went away. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're going to take a look at the ribside car, the Milwaukee ribside car. Now, what we're going to really look at is the double door, and that was in an automobile series for the Milwaukee, the 6500, 6599. The Milwaukee car, for those of you unaware, Carl Nystrom, who bounced around to several railroads, he came from, I believe, Sweden, and he was a mechanical engineer, and he's the one who's credited with the design of the Milwaukee Road ribside. And he came, I believe it was in 19, I think the corner says 27. And well, he came to the Milwaukee, and this car was, as you all know, the ribsides were first built in 1939. They had the long ribs, okay? And eventually they went to these panels, which you see on the ends, and the ribs were shortened. Why that was done was supposedly for strength. But anyway, we're going to take a look, like I say, at the double door cars, the automobile, which was built in 42. Now, this kit, the ribside cars, came to us from a gentleman named George Schmidt, who of course has now passed on, and the tooling was bought by Accurail. Also, there was Jim Singer, and he had Fifth Avenue car shops, and he also got together with George. And of course, what Jim did, for those of you unaware, he primarily worked with Accurail, and he would take accurate paint schemes and get them on a car that was as close to accurate as prototype. So that was Jim's contribution. And he is also no longer doing it. Now, when I did this in 2004, I contacted George Schmidt. At that point was still alive. I contacted him. I said, hey, I'm doing a clinic on your cars, and I want to do one on the Milwaukee. Could you please send me up a couple kits for display? And George was kind enough at that time to do that. So when you open the box, here's what it was like. And you notice with that wonderful steel weight, well, now we don't get those from the manufacturers anymore. But the car itself was very well done. And I'm glad Accurail picked them up, and I hope we'll produce them again in the future. But the car had 5.5 dreadnought ends. It had the lumbar door on the end. And you see in the lower corner, I'm sorry. You see in the low, I'm pointing at, it's the arrows pointing at the molded on grab irons, which we're eventually going to remove here. And a lot of people have a tendency not to look at the data sheets, but I strongly urge you to usually take a look at them. There, for the ribside cars, there's some important points. You will note that the first one up there, the 6500 series, the 6599, it had the wood running boards, whereas later on you get the series, the 6600 to the 6899, that had steel running boards. And another key feature in this data sheet, if you look down at the third arrow down there, it says for the detail experts. Well, you all are, so you obviously want to do it. You're going to remove 2 of the cross members from the underframe, which we're going to do tonight. So there are key points and things that are important in this data sheet to take a look at. Now, in the presentation I gave here before, we talked about this gate, and it also, this same type of gate appeared on the Innovative Model Works. And we're going to, again, I'll quickly review the gate process the way I do it. I was doing it back in 2004. I mount, as you see, the saw blade with very fine teeth and I end up cutting curves. Now, one important thing is let the saw do the work. Don't try to push the saw blade or you will get a kickback just as you do on any, if you've ran a table saw, you get a kickback if you force things. So again, don't force it. And for those of you who are queasy, I've got a couple friends that are, if you want to try this, you can buy a cover for the saw blade that also mounts on the Dremel tool. Now here you have an example of the kerfs as they're cut. And then you take dental tools, and I've got quite a collection that I bought. Well, it used to be my second stop at Train Fest in Milwaukee. It used to be the tool man. It was Mr. Carr. And he is now also has left the business, and I don't know. I believe he's passed on. But you see the dental tool back there where the arrow is pointing at. It has kind of a right angle bend in it and a sharpened up point. And it is the perfect tool for, of course, you could also, but you notice that fits in there beautifully to remove those fine curves. The exterior you could do with a knife or an X-Acto blade, or nowadays there's so many chisels on the market, like your chisels you can buy, or the God Hand, and most of those are very, very sharp and will do the job. So you see here, we have now, you see where if we look in the center between the two not the bolsters, the crossbearers, you see that center, we have now removed that gate. And also we have to remove, remember, two stringers. You see one removed, and you also see there on the left, all the kerfs are now cut in that other string to make it very easy to remove it with a blade. And then also the dental tools, not only are they good for like scrapers and etc. Here you have one that has that beautiful curved on it. If you take one of those and grind it to 60-degree angle, you will end up with a fabulous scriber. If you choose not, otherwise, if you want, you can buy a commercial one. But if you make your own, grind it to 60 degrees on either side, you will end up, and as long as it pulls a nice curly cue when you pull it on a sheet of styrene, you know it's very sharp. And what it does, you see now we have cleaned that underframe up, and you see in the lower right, this is what we started with, and we now have the correct underframe on the upper one, and we're ready to move on. Here, also, you notice that here's a side view. Obviously, on the car, it had molded on grab irons like all the others, so we're going to remove them. Now, I'll point out features that I did not originally, but here you have, this car is in the 6600. This car is in the 6600 to 6900 series. And one thing this car had was the Youngstown steel doors on it. And it covered an area of 12 feet, I believe 6 inches. And eventually that opening on the Milwaukee double door cars got larger. But anyway, I will remove the grab irons. Here are the tools I like today. I've shown these to you before. I custom grind my own blade, which is on the left. It's an X-Acto 17. But if you don't want to grind your own, there are, of course, these are the mini scalpels with mini scalpel blades. I purchased these at Micromart. Others, as I said, you could use probably the God Hand or the USA chisels. Now, the end of the car was done correctly. It has the 5.5 ends, which it should have. And of course, now you see we've carved those molded grab irons that were on there earlier, are now taken off. Now, to attach the weight, I like Permatex. You've heard me say that before, and it's a silicone and it's a clear adhesive sealant. Now, you see the weights in the car, and the end weights, you notice, have goo on it. Now that's because those two I originally stuck together, but only would I use goo like in the center where I'm adding additional weight and metal to metal. Never the goo to the plastic. It has acetone, and I can guarantee you, you in time will get warpage with, so if you don't want to use silica, let's say the Permatex, by the way, which is not in the adhesive sections of your, I buy it at Walmart and it is in the automotive section because it was primarily used for gaskets. Now in that lower left, you have the NMRA formula, which you calculate the weight of the car, and the average on most cars is 3.8 ounces. This one, it's actually 3.75. I always say 3.8, and that's what I normally weight cars to. And if I get them up to 4 ounces, that's fine. At this time, I was into using styrene rather than, today I use all, of course, wire, but at this time it was styrene. Now, the first thing, obviously, you would drill, tap the coupler pockets, the covers, and that center plate, which is on the bolster where the trucks are going to go. Now that train line is, the prototype train line is 1.25 inches, which is 15 thousandths, or 1.5 inches, which is 19 thousandths. Now, 15 thousandths is pretty easy. 19 thousandths, Detail Associates used to have the wire, and that's hard to get now. So most people are using probably 18, or at this time, styrene, the closest was 20 thousandths. Now here you have an old PFM caliper, and for those of you, some of you may have one, or have seen one. PFM came out with these, and I did not buy one originally, but a friend who is now passed on, was a scratch builder, said, hey, you're one of these guys who need this. So this is actually an HO scale increments. So, but what I wanted to point out here is that you see where the caliper is stretched between the cross tie and the bolster, because we're going to do the train line here. But rather than take out a scale rule and measure that and then go off to your material and try to duplicate, if you got a caliper, this is an easy way to do measurements. Spread it out, put it next to the material. In this case, it's that 20,000 styrene rod. And then, of course, while it's in place, take whatever cutting tool. I use a lot the single edge razor blade, and we got it cut. And so each piece is automatically will fit the area it is designated to fit. And it is much easier than trying to use a scale rule and mark measurements. Today, by the way, I know when I do the train line, I no longer even do it that way, because I drill all the holes for the train line. And at first, I did not have a drill commercially. I didn't purchase one. I was also a woodworker. So the old method in woodworking was you took a piece of piano wire. In this case, I'm using 32 thousandths and about 4 inches long, sharpen the tip, and it will work just as well. The idea is it's like a flat drill. So today, that will go through plastic quite adequately, drill the holes, and string the train line. Now, for the underbody, you can see the Milwaukee here was very kind, and they tipped over one for us, so we could see the underbody. And you'll note that the two stringers we've removed are cross ties. I'm sorry, stringers are all there. That's the 4 running longitudinally, but the two cross ties are gone. And the key here is also, you notice we got the brake equipment is on the one side. We see where you can here now get an idea where the retainer line is. You also see that this one is definitely a later car was built, because the earlier cars had Equipco brake wheels. This one happens to have a minor. So and back here in 2004, when I did this, I used the kit brake parts. And as you see here, the only change today I make as a general case, you see the two, the levers are the brake cylinder lever, and of course the floating lever are pointed almost vertically up and down. Today, I would not do that. If you move to the bottom of the screen, let's say that end of the brake levers, I normally move them over to the right, so they're angled you form like a triangle instead of this straight up and down. And that's a release brake. And that I found out in later years when Gene Green gave a presentation in Naperville about brake systems and put out a beautiful book that's available on the Real STMF site if you're interested in downloading it.
Or
Now,
I can
if
send it to you.
Okay. Then you have, of course, if no matter what parts you use, you got to pre-drill. It's once you have them mounted, it's going to be very difficult to drill those holes. So you can see that's all I'm saying is, and the brake levers themselves, obviously there a lot of kits have them in resin. I don't recommend the resin ones. They break too easily. You can make them yourself, which I do out of styrene, or you can purchase them. And that, for example, a lot of Tichy has them in their set. CalScale has them. Yarmouth Model Works has some beautiful brass ones if you're into the metal. And you also have the brake lever hangers, which are normally the grab iron. Now, in my case, I still use grab irons, but I also, way back in 2004, I began cutting off the sill steps off of many plastic cars, and I just use them for the brake lever hangers. So now we'll look at the B-end work. And, the first thing I always do, no matter what car I am building, I like to install the ladders first. And the reason being is I then, if you're using photographs for your build, you can go off and get an idea of where everything should be located versus that. Here you have, I put the brake platform on, that happens to be, was 20,000. But at this time, in the early years, I did not always put the platform brackets on right away. Today I do. I do them immediately, and I normally use Evergreen 1x2 styrene for it. And at this time, it was Campbell had the black chain that was out there. And that's the black 40 links per inch. That Campbell chain today is, apparently along the way, A-Line had it, and that is the name. If you're interested in that particular chain, you would today buy the A-Line 40 links per chain. And the brake wheel, as I said, this series of cars, the 6600 to 6900, had the Equipco wheel. Later, the cars, they started using minor wheels. Here, we're going to look at the bell crank, and that's obviously the piece located there with this is a CalScale part, which is a very nicely made part. The other one that I think the other excellent part is in the Tichy packs. But the CalScale one at this time, you drill the 68 hole. And for the brake rod, since I was using styrene, you can do the 1 1/4 inches, the 15 thousandths diameter. Now the retainer line, obviously want to do that. The valve, that was a CalScale part. The part that was in this kit was not done very well, in my opinion. And obviously, the CalScale requires a number 72 drill. The line, the prototype line is 5/8 of an inch, okay, which calculates out to about 7 thousandths. So today I use Tichy bronze wire 8 thousandths for that retainer line. There are some modelers that are doing it in the 6 thousandths. My fingers are too pudgy for that. And my gray head says 8,000 is good enough. And then you have also at this time, I was not using 8 thousandths. I was using the Plastistruct 10,000 styrene because I was doing a styrene, and that was the size. Now here, because I was doing it for the RPM, I took the retainer line and I actually ran it to its proper location. As you can see back there or here, it comes along and runs down to the AB valve. It is the center connection on the AB valve. Now, I today do not put the retainer line all the way to the AB valve. I normally cut it there, as you see on the left side by the first bolster, and that I think is just fine. Now here we're gonna move on a little bit. And for you need the other tools to do the model. You have the typical cutters, you have of course, you have the pin vise with the drills, and I use an awl. That's my simple push pin. You can mount a pin in a pin vise, that'd work. And the tweezers, I have various kinds, but and that at that time, the plier you see there, I'm no longer using. I since have found, and my number one plier today, believe it or not, is that beadsmith that you see on the screen on the right side. You can purchase them at any Hobby Lobby, and I noticed for a while that they were not there, but lately when I go, I don't know if people are picking it up from presentations, but they were well stocked the last time I was there. And that's my go-to, because if you notice the Xuron, which I also both use quite a bit, which is one is serrated jaw and one is non. Notice that point, when you compare it on that beadsmith from Hobby Lobby, it is actually smaller on it than it is on the Xuron. Now, this would be your typical brake system layout, right? That you have diagrams that are available for. However, remember on the Milwaukee, in that lower right, the Milwaukee was one of the roads that put, at this time, everything on one side. The brake levers, prototype 3/4 inch at this time. Now, I was using Detail Associates wire, 10,000. You got the brake lever from going out to the bolster was 3/4. All of them, all the brake rods, basically 12,000 wire, and the piping 10,000s. And here's the piping diagram. You've heard me kind of preach about this one. If you don't have the if you haven't bought a scale set, buy at least one. And the paperwork that comes with it, here is the sheet. And they do a wonderful job here of showing you the piping, how it should go to the AB valve, etc. And there are other things on there. It's well worth. I keep this on the desk at all times. That's one of my go-to sheets on the desk. Now the piping, as I said, brake cylinder at AB valve, that's an inch diameter, so 12 thousandths, and to the reservoir is 3/4. So at this time it was 10 thousandths. Now we're gonna just take a look. We'll install the new grab irons, and during this period of time, of course, the AAR design standards were 5/8 inch minimum for the grabs. Your finger clearance by the standards was 2.5 inches. At the time I did this car, I was using Detail Associates grab irons. I no longer, and those are actually hard to get unless you have them in inventory. Today, once KD came out with their grab irons, the 2250s and 2251s, they're outstanding bracket grabs. There's nothing better, in my opinion, on the market. And the ones in the plastic bags are those I bought separately through Sam. And Sam, of course, is no longer with KD, and they won't sell you anything separate now. Everything must go through their website. You cannot buy separate parts. But when Sam was there, I purchased these, and these are for the ends of the car. Now, of course, the grabs are self-spacing, but I still wanted to show you any grab iron work. You're going to want a grab iron gauge of some type. I make my own. That's, to do 20 thousandths. Now, the lower grabs here on the end of the car, you can use the Tichy or other manufacturer 18 inch in length. But you notice that upper grab above the Sill grab there on the right side is 19.25 inches in length on the prototype. You cannot get a model grab iron, so you're going to have to bend your own. I have shown, this is my simple gauge for doing it. And as I said, normally for doing the grab irons, I used to use, as you can see, the Detail Associates. Again, they reduced the number of pieces in the bags. The prices got more expensive. So I changed over, like many modelers have, to phosphorus bronze wire from Tichy. And those are the 3 common sizes I use. You notice I got them color coded. when you get to be my gray head, I don't want to be digging. I like colors, so double green, and you notice each of them has their own color code. So I can quickly grab, reach in the drawer and pull the right tube out to do the grab iron. Now, I've said in the back that caliper is a very important tool. For our grab iron that we're going to do, you know, you would measure the between the two the fasteners, and then carry that measurement with the caliper over to the grab iron gauge and drill a hole, mark it, drill a hole at that point. Then you take your piece of wire, whether you're going to use brass wire, I use the phosphorus bronze, bend a right angle in it, you stick it in that hole that you drilled. Now, some people, you could bend that wire right down. You wouldn't have to use a plier like I am. I instead put a plier on it, pull it out, and bend it that way. The thing about it is if you bend the wire immediately on the plastic, eventually the plastic's going to wear and you're going to have to. So if you wanted to make one and do it that way, I'd recommend you do it in metal. Anyway, so here we have it, the B end. You notice we've got all the detail now on it, and we've now got our grab irons on there. And again, use the grab iron gauge. I was checking to make sure I had the 20, I said 20 thousandths, 2.5 inches. Really, that's more like 25 thousandths. And if they get up to 30, they still look really good. So anywhere between 20 and 30 thousandths in that gap. That's just another weighted, I lay it on the side and check it. Now the most back then on when these ripside cars came out, they had that ugly sill step, and most models still do today. That's one thing that really has not changed yet too much. So we cut them off, and that's what the side cutter was for, or the sprue cutter. And today, back then I was using A-line, not A-line. Well, it was A-line. They originally started out as Tuttle. Some of you may remember that name. And then A-line took them over eventually. And now today they have 3 styles, and they're still available. They're common at the hobby shop. You have the style A, which we're going to use on that this car had. And you also got the B. As you notice, it's just the difference in the way they're bent. There's a style C down there. So again, they're bent with those pliers, which I've already showed you. We mark a hole. I use a push pin. Sometimes, depending on your hand, that push pin may be harder to make a mark with. So it may be easier to use a pin and a pin vise, and then maybe expand that hole with the push pin, and then end up drilling it. I drill them with obviously number 76 drill is the way to go. That's the whole good, perfect hole size for them. And then you just insert them and glue them into location. Here you have, we're now going to look at uncoupling levers to add to the B end and the A end, obviously, too. Yeah. Originally, I used a lot of Detail Associates, the number 226 eye bolts. You see the plastic bag on the left? Eventually, I start bending my own, and very comparable. I could get them even smaller than Detail Associates. And so those were, again, there you have the bead smith on the right. However, in this case, Xuron wins. If you look at the points on that Xuron on the left, it has 2 sizes of points, and you can bend a really tiny eye bolt. However, I have to admit, if you go to the photo etched world, that Yarmouth Model Works has an eye bolt that is much finer, and I use those a lot today. Anyway, here we have the eye bolt inserted in the car. We also, there's a close-up of that eye bolt where it was drilled. Again, that was drilled with a number 79 drill, inserted, and just, again, another view from the side. The uncoupling lever to bend, I simply have a drawing on the Kel scale sheet that comes with their parts. And you see a circle there on the bottom. And that here, you see, all I do, I have a side view. And in this, for the photograph, I did not do the side view because I wanted to show you just lay it on there put the plier at each end where the bend is to occur and bend it. The dashes going upward on the end, on the right side. Obviously, the uncoupling levers are different lengths. And so I have a couple of them marked today. I actually have a third one. Just you measure the take your caliper, measure from the eye bolt and to where you're going to mount it underneath the car. And that gives you your length for the uncoupling lever. If you don't want to bend them, you can buy the tangent ones. Now on this car, for some reason, I ended up with a slight round in there. And if you do need to do a round on the so-called handle of the uncoupling lever, you can use the KD makes this tool, but this one is the one that I purchased from the train man, or orthodontists use this tool for wire work when they would be doing braces. And it's a lot. I found that when I bought it from the tool man, a very inexpensive compared to the KD product, and they are exactly the same tool. So anyway, here you have the uncoupling lever, and we have it mounted on the bottom of the box. Another view of it from the front end, and our cars. Now you notice on here we have the underbody, and you notice the mount of that uncoupling lever is done, and I do them in the corner of the coupler pocket. Okay, I drill again a number 79 hole, and I attach it with CA to the cover. Don't put the glue in the hole. But now when you remove that screw, the uncoupling lever goes along with the cover, and you can easily do it. Some guys don't like this method at all, and they will bend it, give it a right angle bend. Okay, if you're where the glad is, and the uncoupling lever, once it reaches the glad on the KD coupler, they will make a bend there, a right angle bend back to the screw, create a loop on the end, and put the loop under the screw. So that's another way of doing it. I feel that's a bunch of extra work, and I do not do it that way. So it's up to you, whichever way you want to do it. Eventually, remember on this car, we did not have the brake step supports, so they're added here. And as I said, those are normally evergreen 1x2 strip styrene is the way I cut them. Again, you can use commercial ones if you choose. And of course, there the placard or tack boards are put on at this point. Now, another feature that was on the rib side cars was at this point, they went away from the Murphy panel roof and went to a Murphy double panel welded roof, which again, George, when he had the molds done for these or the tooling, was done very, very well. The one thing I have to admit though, on the running board, I did not like George's main or longitudinal running board. So I switched over at this time back then to a train miniature, which I thought was better done or finer done, better detail, fasteners, etc. And again, we want a wood running board on this car because in the 6500 series, the 6599, that's what they had. Now the laterals or the latitudinal running board, I did use George's that were in the kit on the rib side cars because I thought those were well done. Now, by the way, on that main running board, I'll call it rather than use the fancy long term, on the main one, obviously you could scratch build it out of styrene, you could do it out of wood, or they have laser cut ones today that are just gorgeous if you want to invest. If it's a kit that you're really pleased with and want to really fancy, you can do it that way. However, I think now the one thing that was wrong with the train miniature and many running boards is their thickness. They're way too thick. So in my case, I built the jig. This is 60 thousandths with 20,000 styrene placed over it. And so basically I want that running board to match the prototype about 2.5 inches. So obviously you see my simple mill setup is a Dremel tool in the upper left, but you place the the main running board in it, and absolutely just mill it. And the bit in that is a Dremel high-speed cutter. It's the number 199. And I've got my fingers up next to it even, and I have never cut myself with this particular bit. So I use it quite a bit. I still do the bits to, the running boards, the milling today. So then you do the grab irons, and you should have a clear length there between the ends and the middle leg, which is an eye bolt. That should be your 16-inch minimum. So now we have our running board on, and to put it on or to fasten it, I still, at many times today, if it's plastic to plastic, I use that tester's tube cement, which many modelers say, oh my God, all those strings. Well, if you put a fresh dab every time you use it, it's not bad at all. Collada in his series, those of you who used to follow the Essential Freight Cars, he used hard cement. And the latest one and I'm using this quite a bit too, the Formula 560 canopy glue. I like the Pacer. Now, if you do the Formula 560, it's like a white glue. So when you put it on, I put the running board on, I lay a ruler over it, put weights on it, and I let it set overnight. The other two, you can continue working, but, and also be careful with that barge cement if you use it. Very small quantity, because it too, as Walter's goo, has acetone in it. So, but I've never had a reaction on a running board. And and obviously now if you do like here, I did quite a few of these Milwaukee cars. I have quite a few running on the railroad. If you're in the 6675 series, this one, the 6675, they received the steel Apex running boards, and that series is 6600 to 6899. And there you have a beautiful KD is, I think, the way to go. Obviously, Plano has the brass ones, and theirs are very nice looking. But the beauty in the KD is that all you have to do, take it out, you cut the pins off that mount over on the ends, and that is all you really have to do. And they fit almost any car, and they go on beautifully. And of course, you have the see-through feature, so you have a high quality running board. The brass or the Plano ones are not as easy to work with, because now you got to mess around with the ends, etc. Now, the beauty of the KD ones, and why I use the KD all the time, now we don't have to do a grab iron. KD has done one grand job on even the grab irons, on their fine grab irons. So once you glue it on, you're done. You're on your way. Obviously, some of you want to put on the air hoses. I personally do not. I have a gentleman who's been in my operating group for many years. He cannot use like as some call them, the telephone poles or the swizzler sticks to uncouple from the vertical. He must have the glad on the coupler so he can reach and pull it with an uncoupling tool. So I don't want the KD glad and another air hose, because then that's the look of a passenger car. So I keep the glads and I don't put them on. But for those of you who are going to put them on, you notice it's a 2.5-inch diameter hose, and they were 22 inches in length. Now, if you're going to put them on, you notice in the lower right-hand corner, there are various manufacturers. They all have them in their kits. They do them in plastic. And those have a tendency in the uncoupling process on an operating railroad to break off and disappear quickly. Now, the new high-tech rubber ones, which are starting to appear in a few of the resin kits, I think are the way to go. So if you're going to do the air hoses, I recommend you use the high-tech rubber ones, because even in the uncoupling process of cars, they aren't going to break off. So anyway, that's what we've done. We upgraded that car. Here you see it. I call it, this is dock and siding on my railroad next to the GN interchange. It's sitting there. And I think we've done this is a respectable way to take a good kit, or actually I thought an excellent kit when George brought them out. And Well, let's only hope AccuRail does them again. And there you have it. And you have some I think, a very fine model to run on the railroad. Are there any questions? And by the way, this is, for you, I send out this quite a bit. A lot of you I send it to. And so, the blog spot has a lot of additional information out there. And so, wait. I hope I'm back in Zoom.
You're back.
Am I back?
We can still hear you.
Why?
There you
Why
go.
won't- Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
Nice job, Lester. That was really good.
Well, anybody got any questions?
Question about the prototype. When it looks like there's a center post in that double door arrangement.
That is correct. The Milwaukee in that double door, they did put a removable center post. It was removable. And also, if you remember when I said that when they shorten the ribs like on the double doors, and they put the pans on the ends, they also put the pans, if you notice, next to the door on the prototype, because it provided, I'm no engineer, but it provided additional strength, is what they said. You will hear people say that they did the pans on the ends for clearance problems. And that isn't what the Milwaukee sheets they talk about. It was for additional strength, and the pans along the door, same thing. And the center post was removable.
Thank you.
Hey Lester,
Anybody-
what was the website for Gene Green's
It's
periodical that you said?
okay. Doug said he'll send it if you'd like, but the one is real STMFC. And it is in Groups.io out there. And if you are interested in the prototype modeling, there's one in for plastics too, or is also out there in Groups.io. You go out, you're going to have to sign, register, and they approve you. And then you're out there, you can go look every day. And the discussions, I know when they used to be on Yahoo and they moved over to Groups.io. And because Yahoo did away with the groups, Doug, who is here tonight, I know he moved all of that data onto drives, so he'd preserve all the history. Because you can do searches out there. There are files that have been posted, many files, and that's where Gene Green posted his presentation in the file section on that real STMFC. Okay.
Actually, I'm the one that posted it. I had a copy.
Did
of
you?
Gene's- Yeah, I had a copy of Gene's program or handout and got permission from him to scan it and post it because a lot of people were asking questions. And he did that in the days before computer scanners were easily to use. So, and then he had
Okay.
a computer fry and he lost the whole file. So,
But that book, if for those of you who are interested in doing underbody, that is the principle, let's say the Bible. We'll call it the Bible. And just like I wanted to show you, which wasn't in the presentation, if you're interested in the Milwaukee, this is the one you want. The Car Builders Prototype Cyclopedia, number 13. That has an entire section devoted to the cars and everything you want to know about the Milwaukee boxcars from 1939 to their double door cars. So that's what I call the Bible, Railway Prototype Cyclopedia 13. That's the Bible for if you're into the Milwaukee. Obviously, you can go to the Car Builders Cyclopedias, but you're going to have to dig through quite a few volumes, where here you can go to one book and you have it all.
I think that flat end was because that was pressed with the end of the car. It was all one piece that went around. You could look at, if you look in that book you just had, it'll show you a picture of one. Where
Right.
that steel was all one piece in that corner.
Correct. And when they put it with the end, it gave a tremendous strength compared to when it had the rib all the way to the end.
Yeah, because then there
They-
was a
that-
piece, a junction in the corner.
Right,
And when they bent it around, there wasn't anymore.
right. The Milwaukee nicknamed them pans for some reason. They called them
Okay.
pans because they look like a cake sheet pan, I guess.
Yeah,
Now I'm hungry.
yeah.
Anyway, any other that anybody I can help? You notice on these presentations, when I said to Greg and Jim, that there will be repetition, obviously, because I did it for various groups, but like I say, this was the first, I got a few more that I've talked to Greg about, and I'll be doing some of them for you. The next one I would like to do is, it's a combination. I've done presentations on stock cars, hoppers, and the next one I think we'll do is one that will be, I'd like to present on doing a stock car, a PK2 or Proto 2000 stock car, and the tools and how you might go about working those.
Excellent.
As long as there's interest. If you don't want them, just tell me and I will go away.
Well, we still got people showing up, Lester, and I warned people in advance that it was you, so I think that's a good sign.
And I have a delete button.
All right. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
I really appreciate you doing this, Lester, and everybody else who's been presenting. Next week, we're going to have John Golden, who's going to tell us about his switching layout that he's working on. So that should be interesting. And then the following week, we have Gene Green lined up, who we've heard about today. So, and then after that, we do need more. So Lester, will definitely have you on.
Yep.
And
Then you
anybody
can
else?
Let's put the one with the stock car and tools on there then.
Okay.
Okay, if you want.
Yeah.
And Ron has been digging out lists from old
That's right.
RPMs, and Clark and I and others have done clinics at those events that Ron's saying those would be good to see again. So I'm prepared to do any of them that he's listed under my name. If
Very
they're not
good.
under my name, I will probably take a stab at it anyway.
Well, also,
I,
I think Ron made a great point that a lot of these were never out there recorded, and now that they're being recorded, they're there for other people to view and as a permanent reference kind of out there.
Sure.
And I think now, Greg, I don't know if you're the one who's instituted the recording and et cetera, but it's a great way to go. And the archives are a fabulous tool that you're creating for modelers, all of us, to use in the future.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
copying the ones I've done, putting them on my own YouTube channel after Greg records them. It's a great way to preserve that, have it in more one place and share it with people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to do it. And the content is of great interest. I think I've gone over it a couple times on here. Our YouTube channel is becoming quite popular, and we get more subscribers every week. And typically there's very nice comments out there, sometimes questions or comments, that sort of thing. So it's great to see. I always forward those along to the presenter.
And that's
And,
appreciated.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it is. Yeah.
So it's great work that everybody's doing, and it's lots of fun too. So we'll keep at it, and so it looks like we've got a steady stream here of great content coming up the rest of March and into April. So if you are interested in presenting, of course, all you got to do is let me know or let Ron know, and we'll get you on the schedule. And so next week, like I said, it should be John Golden, and yeah, we hope to see you there. So thanks very much again, Lester. Thanks everybody
You're
for
very
joining.
welcome.
okay.
And we'll see
Thank
you
you
next
guys
week.
for watching.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Good